Welcome to the Headless with Cloudinary Bootcamp course. I am Marcelo Lewin, the Headless Creator. As always, you can get a hold of me right there, marcelo@headlesscreator.com. In this interview with Max Mabe, Senior Director of Marketing at Cloudinary and a presenter on this bootcamp, you're going to learn all about video and audio formats. So without further ado, let's get Max in. Max, welcome. Glad to have you here.
Happy to be here. How are you?
I'm doing great. Glad to have you back. You did a podcast with me. It was a great podcast. People can check it out on Headless Creator. But you're also doing a lesson in this bootcamp, which is all on audio and video formats. And we're going to get into some of those questions. But before we get started, give us a little bit about your background. How did you get into tech and all this stuff?
Sure. Yeah. It was quite interesting, actually. Really, I was an artist and I was a photographer, and I started working in a digital photography studio as a studio manager, and I really got attracted to all the technology required to kind of flow those images through concept, through editing, through management, getting those out to our customers. And I just kind of fell in love with that aspect of rich media and workflows. And so ever since then, I've been in technology, which is just over 20 years now.
I love photography. I shot a lot of flowers. I love flowers, shooting flowers and plants. A little bit easier than people because flowers will listen to you. Unless it's windy, then they won't listen to you. But what kind of photography did you do?
I did a lot of abstract fine art photography. I also did some studio work as well, but primarily fine art photography is where I kind of landed.
Got it. That's pretty cool. So what's your hobby besides, is photography still your hobby, or?
I still do a lot of photography. Yeah, I do a lot of outdoor nature photography. Architectural photographs are really cool. Of course, when I go on vacation, it becomes more of a scouting and reconnaissance and taking photos. I have to kind of book days where I'm like, okay, no photography today. I'm going to actually be on vacation.
Right. Well, that's part of the vacation thing,
It really
shooting
is.
a lot of photos. Yeah. Yeah. Do you shoot with a DSLR? Do you shoot with just your iPhone or?
Both.
Okay.
So I'm an Android guy, so I usually have the
Or
latest
Android?
Pixel phone that I use, and I also
Yeah.
have a fixed lens DSLR that I use. I like using fixed lens because it makes you think about
Oh,
composition and
exactly.
layout, and you're not kind of constantly zooming in and out. You're kind
Well, it's
of
higher quality glass too.
higher quality as well, and it really allows you to spend more time on composition and lighting and the
Yeah,
creative aspect, which I enjoy. Yeah.
completely. All right. Well, but not everybody tuned in to talk about photography, although it's a very cool concept or a cool hobby. But how did you end up getting into like Cloudinary? You're working at Cloudinary now. How did you
I am.
land there?
So for a number of years, I was a systems engineer and solutions architect at a company. Then I eventually got into product management, where I was helping build digital asset management software and develop that. I also was doing some marketing at the same time. I eventually wound up working for Apple for a number of years, doing
Oh,
product
cool.
management for them
Mm-hmm.
worldwide for their retail organization. Eventually went into Adobe, where I worked for about 4.5 years, where I did, again, product management and marketing for their digital asset management and rich media delivery solutions. And eventually I made my way to Cloudinary, where I'm on the marketing team now, working on strategy and go-to-market, and just really enjoying all the really great leadership areas that Cloudinary is involved in, and trying to really push the envelope when it comes to rich media management and working with the files that we're going to talk about today, which are audio and video and 3D and AR files. So
Yeah.
it's really kind of a dynamic field to work in and a dynamic company to work for. And interestingly enough, dovetails nicely into my kind of overall career experiences. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So let's jump in and talk a little bit about audio and video formats and why is that important for content authors to understand. They may be looking at this and going like, well, I'm just putting, pages together. What do I need to know about all these formats?
Yeah. I think it's really important, right? I mean, as an artist and you as an artist as well, and as a creator, I think that we oftentimes focus on the fun parts, the probably less technical, right? How can we really get the point across? How can we make it easy to understand? How can it be creative, inviting, interesting? But we don't always think, well, is it going to be compatible? Will everybody be able to see it? What format should I shoot in to make sure that it's going to look really great on all screen sizes, that it'll be supported by all platforms, right? What format should we be capturing in and editing in to kind of make sure that not only it's going to look great when we have it on YouTube, but what if we want to recut it later or use it for promotional pieces or go back into the archives? Are we setting ourselves up for reuse later? Also, audio is a really important piece, right? When we're capturing in a certain format or a certain quality, we know that we're going to compress that down at a certain point for our videos, either streaming or live or kind of static pieces that we might send to other people to use. So if we start with poor quality audio, there really isn't a lot that we can do to make ourselves sound better later. You can only tune or add so much bass to the voice later. It's really not going to, you're not going to be able to get rid of all that echo or all that bad room, acoustics. And if you have a great initial capture of the actual video elements and the audio elements, it's going to give you a lot more flexibility in the future, but it's also going to make sure that you put your content on the platforms and present it in a way that you can be proud of and that really shows off what you can do. And it's quite different from what it used to be, right? You don't really have to go into a full professional studio to have professional looking content. We're doing this from home right now with great audio, great video, great lighting. It's really accessible to all, but to think about the audio and video formats to make everything shine and for your work to really stand out, I think it's an important part of kind of putting that whole package together of what we're trying to do. Yeah.
I love that you said that about the audience, because if somebody's watching, let's say, a video put together on an iPhone or Android phone, it's going to be a totally different experience than if they're watching it on their desktop with a huge monitor and great speakers, right? And then that's where the audio quality may be super important. So yeah, definitely. So let's talk about production or production formats versus editing formats versus delivery formats. Like, can you give us a brief, because I know you're going to cover that in depth in the lesson, but just a brief of each of those?
Yeah, it's a lot to, I think that we could probably do probably several weeks on video and audio capture, format, editing, delivery. It can be very complicated.
Yeah.
What we're going to see in the course that comes after is I try to give some backgrounds and foundational elements and then get you immediately to the formats that you want to gravitate towards, primarily to make sure that you have the furthest reach, and secondarily to make sure that you're going to be able to reuse that content, recut that, for later efforts. Because one of the things about this, it takes a lot of work to produce content, right? And we want to be able to come back to that, not just use it once, but be able to recut it, to use it, to make changes, and get kind of what we call in the business more ROI out of those pieces. So to get back to your question about formats, so let's break it up logically, right? There is a time where you're going to either want to create or capture video, and there's a time where you're going to want to create and or capture audio if your piece actually has audio. There's also, of course, music that you want to be concerned about. Let's break it down, first of all, to audio and video. So the video element, most tools that you're going to use have the option to capture either in their proprietary raw format. And that's pretty good when you're going to do editing, right? Because you're going to get full quality and you have the ability to bring that into your editing suite, start at a very high resolution, do what you need to do, and ultimately take that down to a size that's going to be living on your website or be hosted by a video platform. So in most instances, you're going to want to capture at the highest quality and then bring that down to the size that you're going to ultimately need, because it gives you that flexibility to work with the content. Most of these cameras also have the ability to capture in kind of universal formats. And typically those are things like Adobe ProRes is a format that is very common and used by and available and accessible to all editing platforms, which allows you that flexibility. And it's not a proprietary piece that a camera may shoot in. If you're using the proprietary format that a camera offers, typically you have to also use their editing suites. And in most cases, you don't want to do that, right? You're limited. So proprietary or something that's more universal, both lossless, full quality, you're going to want to go with the universal format, probably in order to give you that flexibility when you come to editing suites. With audio, it's pretty much the same thing, right? You're going to want to capture in an uncompressed format that's usually a WAV or AIFF format. Those are universally accepted by proprietary editing suites and non-proprietary editing suites. Again, that's going to give you that full range of quality. You can make all your changes, your filtering, take out echoes or pops or things like that very easily. And in the end, you're going to have something that's going to transcode or size down in your finished piece, just something that sounds really great, but doesn't take up a lot of space. When it comes to delivery, most days we're streaming everything, right? So the actual format you decide to go, the quality level you go to, you're going to want to make some decisions on that based upon the platforms that you're going to want to publish out to or place upon. You're also going to want to think about, okay, does it need to be 4K? Does it need to be 1080p at the max, or is 720 okay, right? If you're creating small 1:1 ratio ambient videos you're going to loop like on a retail page or as part of your production lead up to the full video, you don't really need that at 4K, right? So we want to kind of plan some of these pieces as we're capturing, as we're editing, as we're thinking about future reuse and the end results or ratios we might want, and then ultimately how we're going to want that to be delivered. And that delivery part, we talk about it a little bit more in depth in the actual course. But obviously, you want to choose formats that are universally, widely accepted across the major platforms and have that kind of smarts or intelligence to stream and adapt based upon the bandwidth that's available and the device, whether it's a mobile or a tablet that customer is going to ultimately view the content on. You want it to be adaptable in other ways. And if you've kind of followed those pieces, then you're going to be sure to have a great experience in the end, no matter the platform or bandwidth, which is, I think, the ultimate goal.
Yep, exactly. Excellent. Max, thank you so much. That was great. It's a great overview of what's to come. Also, so we don't get emails, I know you meant Apple ProRes versus Adobe ProRes, so that way people don't email it. I know what you meant because I know you know your stuff. We were talking about all these
Apple
companies.
ProRes,
So.
yes.
Apple ProRes, so don't email us, please. We know it's Apple. We know. Anyway, Max, thank you so much. If people want to get a hold of you, is it that email right there?
You can just email me at cloudinary.com. Happy to engage. I think during the session, we'll also give you my LinkedIn, so you can be there as well.
We'll do the whole thing. Excellent. Thank you so much, Max. I appreciate it. And thanks to the rest of you. I hope you enjoyed this interview. And like always, get a hold of me right there, Marcelo at headlesscreator.com. Cheers.